Morning, everybody. I'd like to call the meeting to order. My name is Jim Begley. I'm the chair of the Metropolitan Utilities District Board of Directors. I'd like to welcome you all to the committee meetings this morning, January 8th, 2025. This meeting is being live streamed from the boardroom at the M.U.D headquarters building located at 7350 World Communications Drive, and a recording of this meeting will be uploaded to the M.U.D website after the meeting's conclusion. I'd like to invite our Vice President of Safety and Security, Shane Hunter, to provide a briefing regarding protocol for all individuals in attendance at the board meeting today in the event of an emergency. Morning, Shane.
Good morning. Shane Hunter, Vice President of Safety and Security. We are on the first floor here at M.U.D headquarters, and a normal entry and exit into the space is the rear of the room where we all entered this morning. There's also an alternate exit here on the right-hand side. Through that door and in that hallway, we'll find the nearest first aid kit and fire extinguisher. A little further down on the right, we'll find the nearest AED. With the location of the nearest AED in mind, can I have a show of hands of who's CPR and AED trained in the room? Thank you very much. If there's a medical emergency in this space today, 911 will be contacted by the security desk, who will then escort EMS personnel into this space. If we need to leave this room for any reason, we can use either door. But if we need to evacuate this space and the building, we'll go through this door, take two lefts, and then we'll end up in the parking garage for accountability. That concludes the safety briefing.
Thank you, Shane. Roll call, please, Sarah.
Friend.
Here.
Sidzik.
Here.
McGowan.
Here.
Howard. Here. Kavanaugh.
Here.
Begley.
Here.
Cook. Here.
I would like to advise all those in attendance that a copy of the Open Meetings Act is available on the wall in the back of the boardroom. Employees and retirees participated in the district's annual community giving drive last fall. The fundraising drive allows donors the option to designate their funds to the district's utility assistance program, the Home Fund, and or the United Way of the Midlands or another local nonprofit agency. An employee committee was formed to promote the drive and engage employees. The committee participated in a volunteer activity benefiting the Habitat for Humanity Restore. Committee members also visited various department and safety meetings to discuss the importance of giving back to our community. The drive was capped off with a visit from the Pancake Man at our headquarters and construction center. Altogether, our employees and retirees donated more than $106,000. On behalf of the board and our customer owners, I would like to thank everyone who participated in the drive. I am honored to recognize the committee members who worked to execute the successful drive. Please come forward as your name is called. Thank you, Director Friend. Dave Belair's. Lorena Chidas. Sarah Clayton. Corey Ersbommer. Candace Shockley. Dave Smith. Peter Susky. And folks who cannot attend the meeting today, Garrett Grooms, Oliver Hernandez, Danette Lotus, John Ruckman, and Cassandra Zink. Let's give them all a round of applause for this effort. I'm going to take time to take a quick photo right over here. Senior Vice President and Chief Operations Officer Kendall Miner will review the proposed capital expenditures. Good morning, Kendall.
Good morning. Happy New Year to everybody. This morning on the CapEx letter, we have our 2025 annual blanket authorizations. We have 8 of those that are total. We also have on the CapEx letter, 1 item for buildings, equipment, or buildings, planning equipment, 7 items for system improvements. Not going to go through all 8 of those annual authorizations, but I wanted to highlight 2 of those that are the bigger ticket items. Item number 5, the 2025 gas main infrastructure replacement, is $14.5 million. Our M.U.D crews are going to be completing that work internally to replace approximately 12 miles of low and high pressure cast iron mains. Most of that work is going to be completed throughout the course of the year, is reimbursable through our PHMSA grants that we have that are from the PHMSA, the federal funding source. Also includes 2,050 high pressure mains that are going to be moved, or meters, high pressure meters moving from inside to outside of buildings. The next item, number 7, is vehicles and equipment. It's $19.5 million for the blanket authorization of those. That is for our construction equipment and machines, as well as equipment and machines that's needed for our CC2 complex. Out of the 1 item I would like to highlight for buildings, plants, and equipment is the purchase of battery-operated tools, approximately $180,000. Those are managed by our tool room. They've gone through a bidding process, an RFP process. We've had 5 vendors that were selected to go through that process. Hilti, DeWalt, Makita, Milwaukee, and Flex Tools. Makita was the selected vendor to provide our tools and provide the best service for our tools for our crews that are working in the field. Those tools were previously bidded out in 2019, and the warranty has expired on the previous RFP for those tools. So that's why we were going back out for RFP and completed the RFP selection. And the vendor that's selected for this is Southern Carlson. So on the last item of the CapEx letter that I want to highlight is for system improvements is item number 6. This is to install and abandon water and gas mains at approximately $365,000. This project is going to be located on the north 205th and Cumberland Drive. This work is required to eliminate conflicts with the City of Omaha's paving process, proposed grading, and storm sewers. This work is not reimbursable as the mains are in the public right-of-way, and this work is anticipated to begin in February of 2025. With that, I will conclude my overview of the CapEx. You guys have any questions or concerns for me? All right.
Thank you, Kendall.
Thank you.
Director of Plant Engineering Trevor Tonagis will review the change order 1, Stratford West Cedar Construction. Morning, Trevor.
Good morning. Trevor Tonagis, Director of Plant Engineering. I'll have the next 2 items here. The first one is a change order. This is for Stratford West, a new development project. The contractor is Cedar Construction. The change order has 2 items totaling $36,308.67. The bulk of the cost on this one was for a realignment of the water main. This was at the request of the developer, and it was to avoid a storm sewer conflict that conflicted with our main. The remaining cost is related to re-excavation, shoring, and pumping out water in one of the excavations for the main connection to the rest of our system. The change order is about 3.9% of the total construction cost, which was $931,000, just shy of that. The work was approved by the developer, and almost 100% of the cost will be paid for by the developer. Any questions on that one? Okay, I'll
Just an arithmetic question. Is 3% of the total a lot for a change order, or about, or does it vary?
It varies based on the complexity and the size of the project. 3% 3.9% is pretty low and would be expected on a horizontal type job. If you get into vertical construction, buildings, things like that, that number usually gets a little bit higher, just a lot more things that can get missed or that end up changing. But
And this isn't a question for you, Trevor. I can't remember who provided the report last year on the change orders. It was a very detailed, well-done report. Since we flipped the calendar to 25, just a request to provide that report at some time during the first quarter, just change orders from 2024.
Mark Doyle, President. Yes, Director Begley. I'm pretty sure that came out of Steph Henn's area, and correct?
It did.
Yeah.
And I'm sorry, and they're working on it again.
So they are working on it again. Since she's
Awesome.
not mic'd, I'll repeat it. Thank you, Steph.
Yeah, thanks, Steph.
And we appreciate that you're interested in that. Not only does it keep us on our toes, we know change orders are important and can be significant. And a little extra context for Director Cook, it also depends on the type of project. And often when you find something like a storm sewer, there are things that you're just not going to know. And I don't know that we really account for that, but we do bring them back and put a lot of visibility on them when they occur. Fair?
Yes.
I mean, that would be those types of things. Other things, we hope we don't miss them, but occasionally that happens. And sometimes change orders are on the contractor too.
correct.
Yeah.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep.
Next item under tab 10 there is the acceptance contract payment final estimates. This month we have 9 projects. I'll highlight just a few of them. Items C, D, and E were all part of our water IR program to replace the cast iron mains within our system. One of these projects used directional boring, horizontal drilling, and then the other 2 were completed using the pipe burst method, which we've discussed previously. The 3 projects combined replaced about 4.5 miles of 6 to 12 inch pipe within our system. And then items F, G, and H were all new developments. One of them was the subject of the change order we just discussed. These projects combined were added 4 miles of 6 to 12 inch pipe to our system, and all 3 of those projects were completed successfully by Cedar Construction. So, getting a lot done, and end of year getting a lot of these projects closed out, so we're excited about that. Any questions on any of the finals?
Thanks, Trevor.
Okay, thank you.
Vice President of Procurement and Enterprise Services, John Zellers, will now review the bids on materials and contracts. Good morning, John.
Good morning. John Zellers, Vice President of Procurement and Enterprise Services. Bids on materials and contracts may be found on tab 11. There are several items I plan to discuss this morning, and the first 3 may be found on page 2. We are recommending the extension of the purchase of 3 mini excavators from Kubota of Omaha, 2 KX080s and 1 KX040. Both sizes of mini excavators were bid in the latter part of 2024. The board may recall in November awarding the contract to Kubota of Omaha as they were the lowest and responsible bidder. Kubota has agreed to hold the pricing for both machines. The pricing shown in the letter includes higher shipping costs as the machines are being secured from another dealership further away. However, the total pricing remains lower than the second low bid presented in November. All 3 machines are readily available for shipment. The next item is related to the district's commitment to replacing lead water service lines. We took a unique approach to expedite the procurement process to bring on up to 4 plumbers at the beginning of 2025 through a competitive bidding process. With the goal of performing a greater quantity of lead water service line replacements with a unified pricing structure. The bid was set up such that the pricing would be averaged among the 4 lowest bidders based on 200 service replacements each, and each bidder would agree to the unified pricing under separate individual contracts. This approach provides several advantages to include a single bid package to secure multiple plumbers performing the same type of work, a single pricing structure that will streamline the contract administration among all 4 contracts throughout the year, and securing 4 plumbers at the beginning of the year to allow ample time to complete a greater quantity of lead water surface replacements in 2025. The board may recall that funding for the lead water surface replacement program is managed through the Nebraska Department of Environment and Energy. And they have approved this procurement approach. It is recommended that the board approves the 4 plumbers and respective bid value based on the unified pricing structure as shown in the letter. The last 2 items may be found on page 3. We are recommending an extension for roof inspection and maintenance services for M.U.D facilities. The total cost for the work has decreased approximately $13,000 from last year, which is primarily due to the decreasing number of second visits during the year, as we feel we have addressed outstanding maintenance issues over the last couple years. In addition, we are recommending the extension of mail carrier services through Capital Express, who has agreed to hold current pricing. And that's all I have, but would be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Did you say that the price went up because we have fewer inspections?
No, the price went down.
Okay.
Yeah, the price went down.
That
13. Yeah.
It's a new one. Thank you.
You're welcome.
So I just want to make sure I understand this on other items, the lead service line replacement. The bid value is based on an average of 4 bids, 200 water services per bidder. So let's take the top one, Iman, 1.592. I'm assuming that was the bid value, and their bid was 1.706, or is it backwards?
No, the other way around. So their bid was 1.592.
Okay.
And then the average of the 4 lowest bids, so Plumright was 1.715, Burton
Got it.
1.75, and then the average is the 1.7, which all of them agreed to that average blended pricing.
So just so that I understand, are we talking about the bid value because not all water service lines are created equal, depending upon what they've got to deal with to access it, replace it, et cetera?
Correct. So this wasn't just an average of the final costs. This was an average of all the unit quantities or unit bid pricing that is used to calculate what that service replacement cost will be.
Does difficulty of access come into this type of a bid process? Because our people, we know, we're doing a lot of the gas service line in the more congested areas in terms of replacement, where initially, I'm just using this as an analogy because I remember it, Q3 was doing the stuff that was easy to get to. Our people were doing the stuff that was a challenge. Does that factor, the challenge of these factor into the bid value?
So yes, they do. So there's several different unit quantities and associated pricing for each of those. So replacing concrete, replacing curb stops, long services, short services. I may need a little help from my plant engineering friends. But it's no different than the bids that we had done last year, where we had Plumright was one of them, Harrison, and some others. So the difficulty comes into it, but it's already predefined within the unit quantities and the unit pricing.
Is there any possibilities, and I'm not saying this would be bad, I'm saying if you're going to be replacing 800 services, there could be somewhere maybe a change order comes in, or does the contractor just have to eat that if they run into something that?
I feel that we have a pretty good experience over the last year, and that contract has morphed over the last year, adding different unit quantities based on our experience from the early projects that we put together. I'm not going to say that there would not be a change order, but I think that we're getting to a point where we're understanding what we will run into. We have a lot of experience on the IR side of things too, and so this is I don't think that we're going to experience anything different than we have with replacing services through the water IR program.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure, because I want to be fair with the contractors. I want to make sure the customers aren't put out, and I also want to make sure that our people are not out there doing the work that a contractor is then going to end up billing for. So I'm assuming we'll have our inspectors watching what's going on with the replacement of these by any of these bidders.
That's correct.
Thank you.
Yeah, I asked the same question, so about change orders. It's not common on this kind of work because it's just from the street to the house. Doesn't mean it won't be challenging, but I want to reiterate what I told you a little bit ago. We're watching these like a hawk because it is a little different. We are averaging bid values, And we know that, for example, if you're billing on unit costs, we need to make sure the units are accounted for properly and those sort of things. People get pretty creative. I'm not saying they will here, but fair to say?
Yeah, that's
We'll
fair.
be watching these
So
very closely.
Exactly.
we will be the ones assigning the contractors, the winning bidders, the work. In other words, are we going to give them, okay, you get east side of 38th Street, from this street to this street, and you have to do all of them? Is it by job? We're not going to be sending 4 contractors out to do the same block, I'm assuming, or maybe we are, I don't know.
Yeah,
We sure don't want to
Yeah,
do that.
there's a process that we've gone through, but what we're going to be doing is, and I can let Steph fill in the details.
'Cause that's a great question.
But we're going to be providing these contractors groups of services in 20s. So it's
Okay.
not, they're not going to be given 200 at a time. So that allows us to figure out which areas that we need to and actually, they're already predefined at this point. So we already know, the areas that we're concentrating on for 2025. But these contractors will be given blocks of 20. That allows us to evaluate their work, focus on that work, make sure that they're performing, how they need to be to our expectations. And then we can address any issues without just giving them the full 200 at a time. And that gives us some flexibility as well if one contractor isn't as quick, and meeting the needs, that maybe they don't get a full 200. Maybe one contractor gets 210 and the other one gets 190.
So how are we going to do the locating on this? I'm sorry, it just popped into my head. Are we going to have a locator assigned to those 20 when, Plum Right shows up and have them do the locating for them? How would that work?
I'm just going to make an assumption that they call in locate tickets, just like everyone else, and we will go out and locate our facilities just like OPPD and so forth. I don't think that we expect them to locate our facilities.
No, I didn't mean that. I
Oh,
meant
okay.
like the fiber, when we had full-time locating crews assigned to fiber jobs, and that locator would be assigned while this company's out doing fiber. Is that going to be similar if we've got 20 at a time and 4 of them are out working, 4 crews from these contractors? Does that mean potentially 80 crews are out, or 80 jobs, whatever it takes them to do that? You follow what I'm saying? I'm trying to figure out if we're going to have locators assigned. Do they have the bandwidth to do this along with their other locate tickets, that kind of thing?
I want to bring Steph Hen up, not to cut off John, but we've been working really hard on this, and we're glad you're asking, because there's been a lot of work to get to where we've gotten to, so the stage is yours.
Yeah, all right. Stephanie Hand, Director of Program Management, which that's a new position, so if folks aren't familiar with that, my position has to do with all the funding and the lead services and PHMSA and all the grants that we were fortunate enough to get. Mr. Friend, your question having to do with locating, the way it's set up right now, our construction, what we'll call them inspectors, but they're more project managers, our senior engineering techs are set up to do all the locating on this right now. So when 20 services get given to Iman or to Plum Right or whoever that is, it's set up on that senior techs, that's their project, and they do all of the locating for that project at this point.
And is that person also the inspector?
They are. They do all the inspection. They do also the majority of the administrative things, paying the contractor, looking at invoices, all those administrative kind of things that go along with that project management.
Do you see the senior engineering tech assigned to the same, in other words, you're going to be with Plum Right the whole time, you're going to be with Burton the whole time, however that would work, or does it going to depend on their availability and what the contractor can do?
In general, we try and keep them in the same area, and I'm talking a little bit for Trevor in plant engineering.
Geographic area, you mean? Or?
Geographic area, we try and keep them together. So,
Okay.
and those senior engineering techs, they will do a whole block with Plum Right. They may do, if they have another block that Iman's doing a mile over, they may have that one. But in general, yes, they are assigned to that project.
Okay, thank you.
Well, it sounds like that's possibly for accountability too. Then if there's an error that happens, God forbid, and I'm really guessing here, but that way you know who's done the work and who needs to go back and correct it?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. That's all part of the documentation, the records keeping, the whole project management, making sure that things are getting done the way that we anticipate
The way
them
that
to.
you expect?
Right.
Thanks, Dave, for bringing that up. I wouldn't have known to ask those questions.
So just, are these senior engineering techs going to be in areas like I think we still do with locating, where this is their district, so they kind of know what's going on? Is this going to be following these jobs?
They will be following the contractor around.
Okay.
They're not split up into like area, the way I know what you're saying. The locators, we have it split into areas of town, and this is theirs. This senior engineering tech follows around that contractor.
Thank you.
Well, back to the bid process. Are they provided with the individual addresses of all the properties that need to be replaced before they submit their bid?
They were not. And the reason that is we didn't want to give each contractor 200 services to start with for a few different reasons. First of all, we kind of want to see how they're doing. These are new contractors for us. If we're giving them 200 to start with and things don't go well, not saying that they wouldn't, but we kind of want to bleed out the work, see how things are going, and we can be a little bit more agile with that also. Like, for example, if we find leaking services and we want to add that in, well, we can move you around a little bit. The other thing, our design folks, rather than having to put out 800 services all at the same time and having all of those designs done and all of that background, we can spread it out a little bit and kind of as we go. Does that make sense?
Yeah, but they're kind of bidding on something they don't know what they're getting into at some point.
Oh, I know what you're saying, but we also did sit down with all of them ahead of time and explain to them the process. This is how it's going to work. And at any point, we told them, you can walk away from this. No harm, no foul. We're fine with, this is how we want to do this. And you, the contractor, tell us if we're, are we assuming something incorrectly? We want to treat you fairly. But so they knew exactly what they were getting into. And then once the bids were submitted, they also had the chance at that point, if they're saying, you know what, this really isn't going to work for me, we had no problem with them walking away from it. No black marks, nothing.
Okay.
So something else just popped into my head. I apologize.
No worries.
I know that there's a sense of urgency to get these done because of the sheer number of them, and I know that there's some money that has come in, state, federal money, whatever it is. How many of these do we plan on, Mr. Doyle, if you know, how many are our crews, M.U.D. employees, going to do in addition to the 800 that are listed here that the contractors will do? Do we have an idea?
Steph, you have the answer to that.
Yeah, right now, we don't have any plans, for the most part, for our crews to be doing this work. We did discuss it during the budget process of possibly adding crews, but for this year, that did not happen. So all of the lead service work is happening on contract at this point.
And we don't do water services in general regardless.
Right.
That would be something new and different.
It would be something new and different, and part of the reason for that is our plumbers in Omaha, that's the work that they do, and we as the district do not own that service. So this is a little bit of a new endeavor for us, that it's coming through the EPA that we have to replace these lead services, even though we don't technically own them. The customer owns them. And so that has always been typically plumber's work. That's why we have not done it before. Have we done a service here and there over time? Yes, I'm sure. We have.
Well,
But
don't we do it as part of IR work if we run into it? I thought we replaced it if we're replacing a water main, and all those services that are connected, if they're lead, if they've been identified as lead, don't we replace those?
We fund the replacement.
We fund the replacement, but
Okay.
we do not do the
Same-
work.
same
Gotcha. So
group,
it's a
basically,
private
that-
contractor that does it. We just don't physically do it ourselves.
And those
So-
would be the 3 companies that are on contract with us for IR work? There
Correct.
could be 4.
Yeah, right.
But
correct.
that would be
Yep.
we bring those back every 2 or 3 years, if
Correct.
I recall.
Yep.
But good question. I mean, that's the fund of it's. Steph's right on track with that. Historically here, we haven't done work on facilities that we don't own. But this is different because
is.
now we're doing work that we feel we're going to be mandated to do. that needs, so it's a good question, but we're not there yet.
So I don't know, I mean, I know the budget's done, but I'm just looking at my colleagues. I don't know what the thought is, and that's why I didn't, and I appreciate Mr. Minor reaching out and Mr. Nia reaching out, but I wanted to make this a board discussion today because we have 17,000 lead services that we have identified-ish, 17,000.
Around 16, and we think actually we're probably closer to 12 that we
Okay.
actually have to replace.
But even if it's 12, let's say it's 12. Our initial plan before this, correct me if I'm wrong, was to do that over the course of time, which would have stretched 60 years, 70 years, if we did it at the rate we were planning before the federal state money came in, that kind of. So just looking at my colleagues, and I'm not suggesting anything, should we be looking at giving the management, if they could do it, the means to hire a crew? Because let's say it's 10,000, not even 12,000. If these guys over the course of annual are doing 800, and I know we don't normally do it, so I'm not saying management missed anything here. I'm just saying to the board, what's your thought about hiring a crew to do this? Because if we're going to be mandated anyway, and is there going to be more federal or state? I don't know, but the bottom line is if there's even 10,000, do we just
No, that you make such a
do
good
800 a year?
Yeah, you make such a good point, and even though our employees don't do this right now, I'm sure they could learn how to. I mean, they do certainly really difficult jobs and could learn how to do that. And when do we anticipate this actually getting started?
This,
Yeah.
it started.
It's started.
Oh, it
Yeah,
started.
We've
Okay.
done a couple of pilot projects on lead service line replacement, but we're past that.
We're past that. We did the pilot projects, and now we have 3 contractors working for us. We've completed, Trevor, is that 3 projects we've completed? Yeah. I think we've completed 3. Still working on others.
What area are you in? I haven't seen this myself.
Pretty much most of it is east of 72nd Street, north and south Omaha, because it's, and Massa was the year was 1932, there it is. Services, that's when basically the mandate came through that lead services could no longer be installed after
Sure,
1932.
sure. Well, and to Dave's point, once the work gets started in an area, the one thing people want is for it to get done in the area, to be completed and not have your lives disrupted any longer than necessary with all this construction. And it would seem to me, again, to Dave's point, that our employees would be able to do this work, and we'd be able to get it done faster.
I don't think there's any question they can do it. My concern is they're doing it on property we don't own. It's the people that, the homeowner's property, and I have a concern about our crews working on property that we don't own.
Do you see a problem with that?
Well, this is a great discussion, and I'm going to go back with a little history like I like to do. Quite a few years ago, we were doing all gas main work, all of it, including gas services.
Correct.
And this board, and some of you are still here, wrestled with the idea of letting any gas work go to the outside, but there's a safety concern with that. So we had a nice compromise, but at the end of the day, the discussion went toward, we need to get these low-pressure cast iron gas mains out of the ground. They're a safety hazard. We'd love to do it all ourselves. We have to team up and get help, or it's going to take too long to get this safety issue solved. This is kind of the reverse of that.
Yeah.
We've never done water services, although I agree with Steph, that's not entirely true.
True.
There are water services that I'm sure we have replaced.
We have.
Regardless of being on customers' property, but we're always in customer homes. So I understand that, but we're inspecting furnaces, we're in there a lot. Our fitters are in there doing all the gas work, so this is kind of the reverse of that. And let's have a discussion about it, we don't have to end it here.
I'll just end with this, and I appreciate where Mr. McGowan's coming from. We don't own it, but at some point in time, we could be mandated to have to do this, whether we own it or not. And I think the other issue that we're going to face is one neighbor's going to look at the other, and whoever gets theirs done and the other one doesn't, how come your bull's got more in it than mine does? And because people don't know, the average person that buys a house has no idea that from the corporation back is their responsibility, which is why this company that we've teamed with and others offer that insurance to mitigate if you do have a problem on that. And most people don't know. So I guess we don't need to beat this horse anymore today, but at some point in time, if we hired a couple of crews, I know there's a rate impact because that's an issue, but if we hired a couple of crews and went from 800 to 1,000 or 1,200 instead of a 70-year program that was kind of initially the old approach, if we could do it in 10, that's better than 70, and 5 is better than 10, but I know there's a rate impact, I get that, but.
And Director McGowan, our Director Friend, you're right in that neighbors are going to say, why is this happening here? When am I going to have this happen at my house? They're going to talk to one another. They're probably not going to be calling M.U.D. saying, I'd like some information, because they're busy and it's easier to talk to your neighbor. But the sooner that we could accomplish this, I think the better for everybody. And people just want to know that we're doing the work and we're not inconveniencing them, basically.
Stephanie, if we have a crew that does this work, can we be reimbursed as M.U.D. from the grants that we have, or does that have to go to third parties?
No, we can. We absolutely can. We can do that work ourselves. One piece I wanted to follow up on, Mr. Friend, is we are mandated to do this right now through the new lead and copper rule through the EPA. And so we're on a 10-year program right now to complete this. And so as a part of this bid that we're asking for a recommendation for today is to go as fast as we can and getting as many folks, as many plumbers out there doing this as possible, because we know we have to go faster in order to meet all of the deadlines with the EPA. There is also stipulations as far as plumbing licenses and things like that. So that's all kind of part of it, and that's why we went to our plumbers to do a lot of this work. We need a lot of crews doing this, basically.
I think you have to have a master plumber on each job, on each meter, each new line. So I don't know what that would look like. I guess I'm just throwing it out there for discussion.
Is there a time frame when this money has to be used by?
Yes, there is.
Well, that's an important consideration, too.
Good question.
Yes.
And that's why we're urgent on this for a lot of reasons. It's a safety hazard that needs to be solved.
Correct.
And the quicker the better, but there is a timeline on the money if you want to address that.
Oh, on the funding?
On the funding that the grant money.
Yes, that's true. And we actually have, on the lead service side, we have actually 3 buckets of money that we can pull off of right now. One of them is an $8 million cash fund from the state budget, from the state of Nebraska. We also have a $40 million, which is through the state revolving fund through the state, which came down through the EPA. We have $40 million over there, which is a loan. And then we also have $4 million from the federal government. Each of those have different timelines on them. Right now, the $8 million through the state of Nebraska has a deadline of June, at the end of June of this year of 25. So we're trying like heck to we want to spend as much as we can, and kudos to Rick. He's always working on what we can do to keep it and make sure we spend it quick enough. So there's that. There's also our $40 million through the SRF fund, and I may have to phone a friend with Mark Myers. I know we have X amount of time to spend it, but then we have to start paying it back, and it's kind of a back and forth thing, and we can ask for a little bit more time there, but there's definite timelines on all of those funding buckets.
There usually is, and I think it's not so much that we need to spend it, as that we need to do the work.
Well, sure.
Right. Well, I mean, we need to spend it correctly. Yes.
I mean, I know what you're saying,
Yeah.
because I spent a lot of years working for the state. But,
Yes, you did.
I think it's important that we look to Dave's point. Here's a real opportunity. Does the state have specific requirements on reporting what gets done over a period of time? I mean, increments of you've accomplished this and we've paid out this?
They do. And so and the way both the grant money works and the loan money works is you spend the money and then you ask for reimbursement. And along with, so we have to submit reports all the time of here's how much work we did, here's what it was, not just installation of or replacement of the the services, but our labor, our folks who are my time, administrative time to coordinate this whole program, all of that can be reimbursed. And so all that has to be itemized and documented and when we go for reimbursements.
So,
Thank you for doing all that work.
quick follow-up question to this, and I don't know if this is even legal. There's Mark Mendenhall, I'm going to put you on the spot here. Would it be reasonable if all of the 4 winning bidders accepted these 200 projects at 1.706 as listed on here, that we could go back, provided they're vetted, we've worked with them before, we're not hiring an unknown, and we've got that $8 million to spend, could we go back and say, hey, Raymond or Backlund or Premier or Franks, would you do the 200 for this? And if they do, then why don't we, unless our internal staff couldn't keep up with that, and we don't have the senior engineering techs. I'm just asking if it's legal, and if it is, then the second question is, could we hire 2 more of them to do it? Instead of doing 800 a year, we're doing 1,200 at that same price? Or is that bid rigging? I mean, I don't know.
Good morning, Mark Mendenhall, Senior Vice President, General Counsel. It's a good question. I think that we have opportunities here. Ultimately, what we're trying to do is ensure that the dollars that are spent are reimbursed. And part of that is an open bidding process. So if we, having gone through this, so each of the 8, I don't know if it's 8, submitted bids with unit pricing, if we say, hey, gosh, we're having such success with these 4, can we go to contractor 5, contractor 6? I mean, at that point, we've already gone through the bidding process, so we've checked that box. So I would say, yeah, we have some flexibility to go to additional contractors to see if they would.
Well, they might be busy enough, they don't want it. But if they are hungry enough and need the work, then maybe we could get, and then, again, I'll throw this back out, and maybe we hire one of our own crews, because even at 10 years, if we hired a crew, it isn't like they're going to have nothing to do after years 2 through 9. Anyway, just a thought.
Yeah, if I could add just, I guess, 2 points. One of the things that we've talked about in order of to, I guess, ensure that this is more of an efficient process is maybe we enter into with our 9, is it, or 8, the pre-approved contractors. We have a master services agreement with all of them. So we've got a contract in place with all of them. And then we're just bidding out, maybe it's packages of 200 that we're going to disperse in batches of 20, and it's essentially like a work order underneath a master services agreement. So the bidding process would go quicker, and it can be more informal, but we're checking that box. That's one idea that we've kicked around. I'm not saying that we'll get to this, but one of my colleagues, Mark Willis, was recently at an AWWA conference in Chicago talking about lead service line replacements. And one of the things that he learned there that I've shared with this group is a contractor in Milwaukee, these contractors will get so efficient, I'm sure. I'm not trying to set us up for this, but the contractor in Milwaukee at one point was getting a service replaced every 3.5 hours. I mean, they were doing 3 a day. So can we try to streamline this process to get to that point where the 10-year pie becomes maybe 9 or 8? That's certainly one of the goals. So,
what can we do today if the other board members are in favor of opening this up, if it's legal, Mr. Mendenhall? And Stephanie, do we have the bandwidth internally, instead of sending out 20 at a time to 4, we do 20 at a time to 5 or 6?
That will be a challenge. The more contractors you get doing this work, we certainly need that happening, but we get our inspectors, our project managers spread really thin. And I want to be a little careful about that, so we can, it's just as important to get these replaced as it is to keep track of it, document it correctly, and make sure that we are getting reimbursed.
So I guess rather than belabor this any longer, I can see Tim.
I have a question too.
Right, I'm just talking for myself.
Okay.
Maybe we give, Mark Doyle said, give us some time to get back with you, and maybe at the February meeting, we could revisit this, and now they kind of know, and I'm not speaking for anybody but myself.
Right.
Well, if
Thank
speed
you.
was such a factor in this, why lay it over for a month? Get going on it.
We're getting going as fast as we possibly can at this point, but we'd like to take a time analyze your questions and suggestions.
And
I guess I have a concern that in this conversation, we're presupposing that the experienced labor is available to expedite. And from what I start to learn about workforce and the kinds of careers that people are choosing, and as people, I mean, my shoulder hurts from my dog pulling on my leash. So just realities of an aging, experienced workforce that I like the conversation and we're getting all excited and absolutely having our own people on board and building that. Does it exist? Is the pipeline, no pun intended, pipeline of workers there to do the work? And then to Stephanie's point about ensuring that it is inspected correctly, that the dollars are accounted for appropriately without, I mean, my guess is people are working at capacity and beyond, just knowing the work ethic of the people here now. That's what I want to insert into the conversation, so I just started talking because people were talking, and you have to talk over people sometimes in this line of work. Thank you.
I think I would just add to that Steph's making a good point. We need to take a look. It is the administrative capacity that's the challenge, because the good news is when I look across this list, 2 of them that didn't make it are our providers already, and we know them. So we're happy that the labor is there. The hardcore plumbing labor is there, and in some communities it's not there.
And just to give you a little bit of quantity of scale, I'm using air quotes here. We kind of started this in 2017, just sort of dabbling. You know, when we ran into a lead service, we'd make sure it was getting replaced. We really kind of launched this program last year, about first or second quarter last year, working to get contractors on board to do this work as we knew the lead and copper rule was coming through. And so last year we were hoping to get about 400 services replaced. We got to about 260. And that's just because there's a learning curve, not only for our senior engineering techs, our project managers who have to administer that work and all the things that there's a whole lot of other things that go along with it, along with our contractors, including the reimbursements. There's also another piece, Buy America, Build America, which is a whole nother administrative piece to this that we have to prove to the state and the EPA that we are adhering to those materials. That's a whole nother piece that isn't typically in a project that's similar to this. And so right now what we're budgeted for, so we did about 260 this year, we're budgeted for about 650 here in 2025, even though this contract is for 800 services. We're hoping we get them all done. We don't know how fast some of these contractors can go. I equate it to everybody wants to go faster, and we want that too. But it's kind of, I equate it to when you're learning something and somebody tells you learn faster. Okay, we will try. It just takes everybody some time.
And you know, one thing I'm hearing all this, sounds like we have a plan right now with these contractors to get this done and spend the $8 million that we have to spend by June, right?
Correct.
Why don't we got to walk before we run, I think, and you said learn. Okay, we're learning a lot on this, so why jump into it, you know, all the way? Let's go with your plan, let's walk before we run, and evaluate things as the contractors go through and find out if we have the talent to do things, and internally, do we have the inspectors and all that? And let's bring it back come back in the summer when we do the budget next year and say, here's what we're going to do in 2026. Maybe a new crew or 2 crews or whatever, but take some time, learn from the experience, and let's move from there.
Well, this isn't the end of the conversation. We appreciate the feedback, the suggestions, and this is just great. I couldn't imagine that we'd be in this spot by now. And a lot of it is because of your support way back in 17 or whenever it was that you agreed to let us, if you touch it, you replace it. I mean,
Correct.
And plus taking the inventory that we took way back then. Right. We're so far ahead. and able to hit the ground running. I don't know if the public will ever appreciate what you're doing for them here. This doesn't enhance our water system. Maybe it does because we get calls on leaks and all those sort of things. This is truly customer-owned infrastructure that is a health problem, and you're supporting this. So, but the work that's been done, I'm glad Steph and Trevor get to talk here, and there's many more. This has been so much work, and to be at this point, looking at this bid list, you should be really proud of what you're supporting here, because we couldn't do it without your support. This isn't that kind of thing that we'd be bringing to you, so thanks for all the work.
Thank you.
I think you're absolutely right. The public doesn't appreciate it because we don't really see an underground
that's
water
okay,
line.
right?
I mean, we're not looking
Yeah.
at it unless it's leaking.
Yeah.
But Steph, have you encountered any resistance? Mike brought this up. Any resistance from the property owners regarding doing this? I think the more that they understand this is to their benefit, it's of no cost to them. It's unlike the sewer replacement where we're always paying for that and probably will be until the cows come home. That really, as you say, this is, M.U.D. is owned by the public and we're serving the public. Sorry to make this question so long and involved.
We
but
expect we'll get some of that. I'll let Steph say whether we have or haven't. We will get some of that if we haven't. But I also want to call attention to the campaign that's been going on. I know Steph Mueller's here. The inspect, I should be able to rattle this off, but anyway, our campaign is letting the public know, and no matter what you mentioned earlier, Director Friend, people are going to know that theirs is getting done before others. We just can't avoid that, right? With that kind of amount. But we are doing it strategically. Our pilot programs focused on daycare centers, schools.
Correct.
So we're taking a real strategic approach with this on prioritization.
are you able to give people a notice, a bit of information about when they can look forward to this coming to their area? Upcoming attractions.
Inspect, detect, correct?
Yeah.
Thank you.
And I'm going to give kudos to Steph Mueller's team in our customer experience group. They do a great job of, they send letters ahead of time. They have folks that are available. Their phone number is on there and their phone rings. And like Megan Walter and some of her folks, their phone rings all the time. And they do a great job of explaining it along with the letter that they've already gotten. And we do the best job that we can to say, here, we're hoping to be here in February. We try to leave it a little bit vague, knowing that, well, there might be 3 feet of snow in February.
Sure, absolutely. And again, next door neighbor, not that I'm putting any plugs in for it, but I think everybody in the city reads that. So there's a good opportunity at no cost to let them know. Next door?
The app is called Next Door.
Next door. And it's in different neighborhoods, but.
So, Mr. Doyle, as we've had this discussion, is this, we're just asking if these 4 contractors still could be voted on today for approval, if we're okay with that?
I have no intention of trying to change.
Good question.
Okay.
Yes, we want to be clear on that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for all the information.
You betcha.
And the questions.
A great discussion on a very important topic. And for those keeping track at home, Director Friend has used his entire quota for the 2025 year. So,
He has.
Sad but accurate.
Mr. Zellers, anything else for John Zellers? Thank you, John.
All right, thank you, and thank you, Stephanie.
Senior Vice President and General Counsel Mark Mendenhall will now review the Nebraska Department of Health and Human Services interlocal agreement. Hello, Mark.
Hey, good morning again. Mark Mendenhall, Senior Vice President, General Counsel. Behind tab 12, you will find a recommendation to authorize Mr. Doyle or Mr. Minor to enter into an interlocal agreement with the Department of Health and Human Services. We have entered into this multiple times in the past. Typically, these were annual agreements, and this is an agreement to essentially certify our water testing laboratory pursuant to Title 179. Director McGowan several years ago brought up the idea of, can we do a multi-year agreement? And so in 2023, the state and the district entered into a 2-year agreement. This is a 3-year agreement. So with your approval, we will enter into this interlocal for a period of 3 years. This also has renewals by signature for 2 additional 1-year periods of time. Your support is appreciated. Happy to answer any questions. Thank you.
Thanks, Mark. Vice President of Engineering, Masa Nia, will now review the proposed main extensions. Good morning, Masa.
Morning. All right, behind tab 13, we have the main extensions letter. Very brief this month. We have one water main extension that involves Bedford Heights development, which includes water service and fire protection for 2 multi-family residential lots. The development is being completed in some open ground near 70th and Bedford Avenue, so beneficial in the sense that we've got some new construction and homes being built in the core of our city. The developer has also requested M.U.D gas service, and that main extension will be brought forth to the board at a future board meeting for approval. The last item I'd like to do a quick update on is the Pheasant Point landfill gas service area enlargement project that was approved by the board at the October board meeting. The process for the gas service enlargement was submitted to the Public Service Commission and has been completed without objections to the project, and it closed last month. The design work is progressing with final design anticipated to be completed in the next couple months, with construction following that. Their goal is to have the construction complete, gas flowing from the landfill by August or September of this year, so a very fast-paced project. I would like to share my appreciation to the district's team that worked on this, all from the gas operations, business development, engineering, and legal team that all worked together to get this to where we're at today and get this project moving forward. And that's all I have to cover today, and would be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Masa.
Thank you.
Vice President of Human Resources, Bonnie Savine, will now review employee wage and/or salary increases and ratifications and the SPA Phase 2 compensation recommendation. Good morning, Bonnie.
Good morning. Bonnie Savine, Vice President, Human Resources. Prior to reviewing tab 14, I'll give a recap on employee counts for the end of the year. At the end of 2023, we had 888 regular full-time employees and 5 regular part-time employees for a total of 893. To end this December, there were 896 regular full-time employees and 5 regular part-time employees for a total of 901. We also had 12 interns at the end of this past year. So, a review of jobs actively in various stages of job placement. We have 3 jobs that have a requisition routing for approval at this time. We also have 9 jobs that are posted currently for our external only, and they're displayed up on the monitors. It looks like there is a 5th one that was just added. And then we have 5 that are internal only as well. Additionally, it is a very busy month for us. We have 16 jobs that are currently being interviewed for, or selections being written up and submitted to Human Resources. So we do anticipate bringing on several new employees over the next month or so. Behind tab 14, you'll find the wage and/or salary increases and ratifications letter. Human Resources is recommending the Board of Directors approve wage or salary increases for 7 of our current employees. 5 employees in the OAC group would be receiving a wage increase for a promotion, as well as 2 SPA employees would receive a promotional salary increase as well. And finally, at the end of the letter, we do have a request to ratify the salary of 1 new hire, and that is a new engineer 1. He was actually a summer employee who transitioned to an intern who then transitioned to a regular full-time employee. So we're excited to have him on board. Any questions on tab 14? Okay, thank you. Behind tab 15, you will find the recommendation for the Phase 2 SPA compensation salary structure adjustment. Management recognizes a competitive compensation structure and policy remains a significant component in our effort to attract and retain engaged and dedicated employees. In 2021, a revision of the salary grade structure was completed for jobs at the director level and higher. That was phase 1 of our project. Today's recommendation is a result of the phase 2 compensation review process. As outlined in the letter, the recommendation is to align the SPA salary structure for the remaining supervisory jobs by creating 4 new salary grades with a similar midpoint differential and range spread. All supervisory salary grades would be represented in a separate salary scale designated with an S behind the grade level. Adjusting the midpoint differential and range spread would result in less overlap in the salary grades and alleviate compression between supervisors and their direct reports. We expect that to happen over the next 1 to 2 years. Additionally, an emphasis on recruitment into our entry and mid-level supervisory positions by our current OAC and SPA employees, as well as future employees, along with retaining the employees in supervisory roles or retaining employees so that we can hire them in the future into supervisory roles, is front of mind. Approval today would update the current 2024 scales with 4 new grades, and it would position us to prepare our 2025 scales that we would bring as a recommendation next month. What questions can I answer for you? Director Howard?
My concern is when we look at doing these adjustments, and I can understand the concern for having an appropriate salary differential between individuals and classifications, but will this result in future adjustments as we move up the scale? You know, we all can remember a couple of years ago when we made some major salary adjustments to the administration and the individuals that are in the CEO position. No reflection on any individual. But I want to make sure that we're not looking at a continual progression that may result in higher salaries than we anticipate in the future that are disproportionate to the employees, basically. So for the record, could you explain that a little further?
So adjustments for these particular 4 salary grades actually positions them very nicely underneath of the director level jobs and above, as well as the individual contributors in our other SPA jobs. And our OAC jobs that report up. Our OAC jobs actually align with about the first 4 SPA grades. So our top paid OAC employees make as much as employees in our grades 1, 2, 3, and 4 in the SPA grades. So that means we do have a bit of compression. For supervisors, we have foremen and supervisors in grades 3 and 4 currently. So they are making as much as many of the OAC employees that they supervise. Therefore, we are adjusting them individually in one-off adjustments to ensure that there is some separation between them. So what I would say is, in the future, the salary structure would remain as is. The midpoint differentials would exist. They would not change unless another recommendation were brought to the board. We don't envision that anytime soon in my career. I don't envision it. The range spreads are the same thing. It widens the range spread a little bit so that it gives an opportunity when we do attract a current employee into one of these supervisory roles, foreman, supervisor, manager, that they have some progression increases for a little bit longer. Right now, with the wage or salary employees are earning, oftentimes when they come into these roles, they'll only see a progression increase for 1 year or maybe 2 years. And then they are eligible for a general increase after that. And that has had an impact. Most of my vice president peers have expressed to me specific examples of times where some of their highest performers in a senior engineering position or a senior customer service technician in field services, or even a group leader in construction, has said, I'm not interested in applying for that foreman role or that supervisor role because it's not worth the compensation adjustment that I would receive. So our goal is to try and reduce some of that. Will we eliminate all of it? I can't say that we would, but this would be a step in the right direction to engage our current employees. And again, not just those that are in line in a position to apply for a foreman or supervisor job, but the new hires. We have 598 employees that have 15 years or less of service. We have 500 that have 10 or less of service. We need to keep those employees here, and we need them to see the potential that they could become a leader in the organization. And that's really the goal here.
And I can appreciate this, a situation where an individual has years of seniority, so they're at a level where they're paid, they're compensated for the work they're doing, and they say, you know, I don't know that for the additional responsibility, I want to move into this next position.
Right.
And I appreciate your explanation, that's very helpful. But the assurance that I was looking for, and to put, as I say on the record, is that we're not looking at going in again for additional adjustments, you know, in the foreseeable future.
That is not the plan in the foreseeable future, to make a recommendation to change the salary structure again. So
thank you.
You're welcome. Other questions that we can address? Thank you.
Thanks, Bonnie. Senior Vice President and General Counsel Mark Mendenhall will now review the purchase agreement for Northwest Reservoir.
All right, good morning again. One last time for me. Mark Mendenhall, Senior Vice President, General Counsel. Behind tab 16, you will find a recommendation to authorize Mr. Doyle to enter into a purchase agreement for approximately 20 acres of property that was identified by our water operations team as a site to construct and then operate in the future as our Northwest Water Reservoir. I do not have the purchase agreement. I think it's the PowerPoint, Jay, the revised. Yeah, there we go. I do not have the purchase agreement associated with this. It is still under negotiation with the property owner. I will say that one of the terms of the agreement is always the price per acre. That price is favorable. We believe it matches the market, and it is favorable to our budget. We are still working through several terms of the agreement, including the due diligence period, as well as an associated easement for future transmission main to ultimately connect to the water reservoir itself. I'm happy to share that agreement once we have a mutually acceptable one with you all. And the intention is to finalize that very soon. The property owner has been reasonable to work with, and I anticipate having an agreement fairly soon. Process-wise, next steps, the engineering team, Mr. Miner most likely will bring forward a capital expenditures recommendation that will include the dollar figures both for the purchase agreement and the due diligence process sometime in the next couple months. And then with similar acquisitions, I will bring back a recommendation prior to closing, and I'll let you all know. We've gone through our due diligence, whether it's a boundary survey, topographical survey, et cetera. The property's great, let's close. Or we'll say, listen, the property just didn't work. What I'd like to do, and I know running short on time, I've got a couple slides with the assistance of Bob Taylor. There's Bob and Doug Whitfield. I imagine, so the Northwest Reservoir, as well as the Southwest Reservoir, there's significant expenditures in terms of developing, building these things. And so I imagine there will be further discussion, presentation before the board where this will be explained in greater detail. But I'd like to take maybe give me 3-4 minutes, and I'll go through a few slides here quickly just to let you all know why this is important at this moment, because you'll remember not too long ago, I was in front of you all asking for the Southwest Water Reservoir. So the slide that you see here is essentially a representation of our 3 water pressure zones. This is our distribution map. Zone 1, light blue, north and south. Zone 2 is the large part of the city in pink. Zone 3 in blue, that's the area that we're focusing on with the Northwest Water Reservoir. You'll see on the bottom of the screen the proposed Southwest Reservoir. We own that property. It's approximately 168th and Capehart. We will most likely be deferring construction on that reservoir for reasons I will briefly summarize here and will explain in greater detail at a future meeting, I presume. The proposed Northwest Reservoir on the top there is approximately 192nd and State Street. And you'll see it's really perfectly situated within Zone 3. Moving to the next slide, this is just a representation, and I know you know all of these terms, but this is Zone 2, again, the primary part of the city, and it identifies where our reservoirs, so 132nd and Harney, Skyline, Field Club, et cetera, and the pump stations. Zone 3, the next slide, is, again, the blue part of that map, and there is Skyline Reservoir and then the pump stations that you'll see. And West Dodge Road Pump Station is what we are all familiar with not too long ago with coming online. Despite this storage at Skyline and these pump stations, we are still experiencing challenges throughout the critical part of the year in the summer with pressures. So if I can show slide 4, Jay, there's graphics here which will demonstrate from 2000 to 2024 the various growth. And so I think, Jay, you'll have to just click through and you'll see how zones 2 and 3 have grown. So there in 2005, you'll see all of the additional growth now into 2010, 2015, and 2020. The growth through zones 3 and 2, but again, focusing on zone 3, significant growth. And then in 2024, if you click it maybe one more time, and then what is currently proposed, so what our design engineers are working for, if you click it, if you click it one more time, you'll see now what's in design. This just shows the significant growth in this part of our distribution system. And then the chart on the left from 2020 to 2024, you'll see Zone 3, over 5,000 new services have been added. So almost twice the amount of services in Zone 3 as we have in Zone 2. And so the challenges then are utilizing existing storage to ensure that pressures throughout Zone 3 remain appropriate. Moving on to slide 5. This is a model from June of this year, 6 a.m., so peak hour, middle of the summer, and the colors represent the various pressures at that moment, that 6 a.m. moment on July 29th. So most of the city is within the blue. That's, I would say, Doug, ideal, higher than 50 pounds per square inch. The yellow would be 40 to 50. And so you'll see significant yellow, so some pressure challenges within that Zone 3. Then what we've done is modeled, if you look at the next slide, we've modeled based on anticipated growth. This is 2030 at that same peak hour. Based on expected growth between now and then, you'll see significant more pressure challenges within Zone 3, meaning there's more yellow, more red. How do we address that? Well, we address it with storage and pumping. And so the next slide shows the model. This does not include the Southwest Reservoir, which is still within our plans, but the Northwest Reservoir in service addresses those pressure challenges. So when I'm up here asking you all to approve this first step, which is acquiring the property, ultimately what we're doing is we're setting a course to eventually build a reservoir pump station that's going to result in 2030 in this, which is ideal pressures through Zone 3. And it actually solves a lot of the Zone 2 pressure challenges. I think I covered everything briefly. There's a lot there I threw at you.
I'm going to add on a little bit. First of all, we're encouraging Mark to get his PE now. But he's fed by some really capable analysts, engineers to come up with this. But because of your support, we funded and built a hydraulic model. This is no longer spreadsheets on someone's desk. This is state-of-the-art software. We're able to model these things. As you know, the work we do needs to be very thoughtful into the future, and it's extremely capital intensive, so we can't be wrong. There are reasons why we're shifting to the Northwest Reservoir first versus the Southwest. That's in the future, but there are good reasons if you need to know them, but they're not based on opinions or anything. You've really put us in a good spot to make sure we can recommend these things with the surety that we're as correct as we possibly can be, so. I don't mean to
Mark,
dwell on, but-
if I remember correctly, the West Dodge pumping station, which we just cut the ribbon on within the last 18 months, was about $10 million, if I remember correctly.
I think it might have been more than that.
I think it was a little more all in,
little
probably
more?
closer to 11, 12.
Pumping station plus a reservoir. What ballpark would we be talking?
A reservoir?
Yeah.
Well, you bring up the pumping stations, and I'm glad these slides show them, because those are like putting hearts all around the distribution system. And as you know, but I like to reiterate for the public, the reservoir, the ability to store water to use, it's a big system. But I'll let you answer the fundamental question.
Fundamental question. So what we have in the budget today is a placeholder for $50 million. And I just wanted to say, I think a significant part of that is we're not running 12-inch mains to this facility. This would be large diameter, 48-inch size mains, so enormous mains. That's a significant part of the expenditure when you're talking several $1 million per mile just to reach that 192nd Street, 192nd and State Street. So I believe we have $50 million in the budget, and yeah.
And we're budgeting far enough ahead where these are in the plan. And I mean, they're not going to be a surprise when we get there in the 5, 10, 15-year forecast.
Thank you.
So you're setting rates based on these sort of things is the real point.
That's true. And to your point, I did want to appreciate Bob, Doug, James, Bartles, Masania. There were a lot of smart people that helped feed me this information, and they all did the work to prepare this. And there's a lot more. There were 20-some, 28 slides. I just picked out 6 or so. So thanks to all of them.
A quick question. The slide that represented July of 2024, was that during our voluntary water cutback?
No, I believe probably May timeframe, the Florence restrictions were all, no. So Florence, there's no restrictions at Florence. I think we were full operation. So the restrictions, I believe that you're referencing as a result of that Florence event would have been.
No, what I'm actually referring to is when we asked people to cut back on water usage and ask them to alternate days.
Oh, alternating days.
Yeah, and I think that was in the heat of the summer.
Yeah, that it would have been, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure, though, that might have been the prior summer. Anyway, I'm pretty sure we were at full speed when we took that snapshot. Everything's
You think it was a year before? Good grief, where does the time go?
Pardon? Yeah, it was. Yeah. Yeah, that's a topic that we always have, but the significant was 23, right?
Okay.
So we were going full bore, and that's 6 a.m. on a point in the summer where that's the highest usage.
Where people are up using showers.
And we're able to model it.
Wow.
And look at the pressures. So
That's really helpful.
That's really
Thank
good
you.
information. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Mark. Are there any members of the public in attendance today who would like to address the board on any matters discussed? Seeing none, do any board members have anything they'd like to add to what we've already discussed this morning? Seeing none, the committee meetings have now concluded. We will reconvene for the regular monthly board meeting in 10 minutes at 9:45. To order. I am Jim Begley, Chairman of the Metropolitan Utilities District Board of Directors, and I'd like to welcome you all to the regular monthly board meeting this morning, January 8th, 2025. This meeting is being live streamed from the boardroom at the M.U.D headquarters building located at 7350 World Communications Drive, and a recording of this meeting will be uploaded to the M.U.D website after the meeting's conclusion. Roll call, please, Sarah.
Friend.
Here.
Sidzik.
Here.
McGowan.
Here.
Howard.
Here.
Kavanaugh.
Here.
Begley.
Here.
Cook.
Here.
I would like to advise all those in attendance that a copy of the Open Meetings Act is available on the wall in the back of the boardroom. For those who wish to participate, we will now recite the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Approval of the minutes for the committee meetings and the regular board meeting for December 4th, 2024. We have a motion.
Moved.
Second.
Third.
Discussion. Roll call.
Friend.
Yes.
Sidzik.
Yes.
McGowan.
Yes.
Howard.
Yes.
Kavanaugh.
Yes.
Begley.
Yes.
Cook.
Yes.
Item 5, we will now take up the election of the new board chair. And I would like to offer a motion to nominate Director Tim Kavanaugh to be chair for 2025.
Second.
Discussion. Roll call.
Friend.
Yes.
Sidzik.
Yes.
McGowan.
Yes.
Howard.
Yes.
Kavanaugh.
Yes.
Begley.
Yes.
Cook.
Yes.
Congratulations, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Director Begley. At this point, I would like to ask for a motion to nominate a new vice chair. And do we have a motion?
We do, Mr. Chair.
And what say you?
Thank you. I would like to nominate Gwen Howard for vice chair.
Thank you.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call.
Friend.
Yes.
Sidzik.
Yes.
McGowan.
Yes.
Howard.
Yes.
Kavanaugh.
Yes.
Begley.
Yes.
Cook.
Yes.
Congratulations, and I look forward to working with each and every one of you like we have for a long time, and I appreciate your confidence. Just bear with me. I don't have the next several agenda items in my book, so I'll wing it. Where are we at? Agenda 7?
Yes.
All the committee assignments will remain the same for this year, so I don't think we need to vote on it, so we'll place that on file. Agenda number 8, capital expenditures.
That's my area,
Dave
Mr.
Fran.
Chairman. So item number 8 under C&O is capital expenditures. This was discussed in committee, and I move approval as outlined in the memo from Kendall Minor dated December 31.
Second. Repeat.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call.
Friend.
Yes.
Sidzik.
Yes.
McGowan.
Yes.
Howard.
Yes.
Kavanaugh.
Yes.
Begley.
Yes.
Cook.
Yes.
Item number 9 under C&O is change order number 1, installing water mains in Stratford West. This was discussed in committee, and I move approval as outlined in the memo from Trevor Tonagis dated December 17th.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call.
Friend.
Yes.
Sidzik.
Yes.
McGowan.
Yes.
Howard.
Yes.
Kavanaugh.
Yes.
Begley.
Yes.
Cook.
Yes.
Item number 10, acceptance of contracts, payment of final estimates, also discussed in committee. I move approval as outlined in the memo from Trevor Tonagis dated December 30th.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call.
Friend.
Yes.
Sidzik.
Yes.
McGowan.
Yes.
Howard.
Yes.
Kavanaugh.
Yes.
Begley.
Yes.
Cook.
Yes.
Item number 11, bids on materials and contracts. This was also discussed extensively in committee, and I move approval as outlined in the memo from Sherry Lightfoot dated December 20th.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call.
Friend.
Yes.
Sidzik.
Yes.
McGowan.
Yes.
Howard.
Yes.
Kavanaugh.
Yes.
Begley.
Yes.
Cook.
Yes.
Item number 12, this is the Nebraska Department of Health and Human Services interlocal agreement. This was also discussed in committee, and I move approval as outlined in the memo from Mark Mendenhall to allow the president to enter into this agreement. The memo from Mendenhall is dated December 31.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call.
Friend.
Yes.
Sidzik.
Yes.
McGowan.
Yes.
Howard.
Yes.
Kavanaugh.
Yes.
Begley.
Yes.
Cook.
Yes.
Item number 13, services and extensions. This is main extension. I move approval. This was also discussed in committee, excuse me. I move approval as outlined in the memo from Masania dated December 27th.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call.
Friend.
Yes.
Sidzik.
Yes.
McGowan.
Yes.
Howard.
Yes.
Kavanaugh.
Yes.
Begley.
Yes.
Cook.
Yes.
Before we go any further, I'm going to revisit Agenda Item 7, and I'd like to make some comments about Director Begley and appreciate, on behalf of our customer owners, fellow M.U.D. members, and employees, we'd like to thank you for your leadership. Serving as the board chair this past year, please accept as our token of our appreciation this plaque. And it doesn't seem to get any easier every year. There's always issues, and they're always important issues. And you've carried out the job terrifically, bigly, very bigly.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and it's incredibly humbling to be a part of this board and to serve the customer owners and to work on a daily basis with such a wonderful workforce, employees, all 900 plus
14
with the district. Thank you so much.
While you're up, Agenda 14.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I would like to offer a motion to approve the wage and/or salary increases and ratifications as discussed in committee this morning and outlined in Ms. Savine's memo dated, the memo that's in the binder that we discussed this morning. I think the date is incorrect on here, so.
January 7th.
January
Second.
7th, 2025.
I second it.
Actually, so.
Is there a second?
I did. Second.
Discussion? Roll call.
Friend.
Yes.
Sidzik.
Yes.
McGowan.
Yes.
Howard.
Yes.
Kavanaugh.
Yes.
Begley.
Yes.
Cook.
Yes.
I move for approval of the SPA salary structure adjustment and policy revision recommendations as discussed in committee this morning and outlined in Ms. Savine's memo dated December 30th, 2024.
Second.
Discussion? Roll call.
Friend.
Yes.
Sidzik.
Yes.
McGowan.
Yes.
Howard.
Yes.
Kavanaugh.
Yes.
Begley.
Yes.
Cook.
Yes.
Item 16 is a purchase agreement, Northwest Reservoir Property at 192nd and State Street. Has been presented to the committee, and I'd like to make a motion for authorization to, for management to enter a purchase agreement for that property at 192nd and State for a pump station.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call.
Friend.
Yes.
Sidzik.
Yes.
McGowan.
Yes.
Howard.
Yes.
Kavanaugh.
Yes.
Begley.
Yes.
Cook.
Yes.
At this time, are there any board members that have any further comments they wish to share? Well, I'll start this off. I've been talking about this for at least a year, and I mentioned it at the last meeting. I would like to change the committee and board meeting for February to 1 p.m., and we'll see how that works. If it causes hardship for anybody, any workers, any board members, we'll see. We can always reevaluate, but I think it would work better, especially for the folks that have to get here really early and prepare for us for our meeting, which we appreciate, by the way. So you can have all morning to do that and not be rushed. Senior management can get together ahead of time and not have to maybe work late the day before. I don't know. But we'll see how it goes. 1 o'clock for committee meetings, 1:45 for the general board meeting. So if we get finished before 1:45 with committee, we'll wait till 1:45. But typically, we run right up against it, so I don't think we'll have a lot of dead time.
So we'll post the board meeting to start at 1:45? That's what we'll publish?
Well, we post the committee meetings, don't we? Post both, 1 and 1:45. Okay, very good. What else? Does any other board member have a comment that they need to make? No? Any members of the public present who'd like to address the board?
Chair Kavanaugh, if I could briefly. I'm finding out Director Begley went bigly in 2024 as part of the Heat the Streets, so I'm here to unfortunately say we're trailing the record that you set last year, both in terms of sponsorship dollars and participants, but we're doing great. We are ahead, so for all of us that have a little competitive nature, we are ahead of OPPD on both. But I want to encourage anyone watching, listening, to come to the website. You can register there. We'd love to have you out there. We love your sponsorship dollars. I want to thank all of the vendors that we've reached out to that have committed dollars on behalf of this great event. Again, Saturday, March 1st, Exarban Village. It's a great event. Love to have you. So thank you very much.
Will there be a kind of a breakfasty thing beforehand, or have we suspended that?
We have suspended the breakfast. I think we utilize a lunch. Yeah, it's a lunch the day prior. Yes. But we have a DJ too, so we're gonna it's gonna be great. Thank you.
You can celebrate the state's birthday March 1st also. Was it 1867? Was that right?
Yes, sir.
Anyone else have any comments? Dave?
Could we move this along?
All right, at this time, we'll entertain a motion to adjourn the meeting.
I so move.
Second.
Discussion, Dave? No?
None, thank you.
Roll call.
Friend?
Yes.
Sidzik?
Yes.
McGowan?
Yes.
Howard?
Yes.
Kavanaugh?
Yes.
Begley?
Yes.
Cook?
Yes.